I am beyond brokenness. My love is not measured in ounces. This is a message that I want to send to each and every person that will attend this live with us today. You are amazing. You are amazing as is. Your love is not measured in the ounces that you make. We go through things as moms, as family, having family, and this live is something that I've wanted to do for a very long time. I am going to really excited to do this live because I know I come to this platform all the time with we hoorah, we can do this. And I know that some of you are out here and that's not your truth. So if you are attending, if you are listening, if you are under the sound of my voice, you deserve to be here. We have to stop pretending for everyone on social media that everything is always perfect. Sometimes we're walking around just walking around, and that's okay too. So to my single moms, to my divorced moms, to my going through a divorce moms, through the moms that have lost children, to the moms that, are just getting by just to get by. This live is for you today. I have wanted to do this for so long because I'm tired of the superwoman complex. I am tired of us feeling like we have to be everything to everyone. We don't. We have to take care of ourselves first. We have to put the oxygen mask on ourselves before we can even attempt to try to save all these other people. We need to take the S off of our chest. And this is the live that we are doing this in. This is a very serious live today because I need you all to know that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to feel like you're carrying the weight of the world on your back. And if one more person asks you one more thing, you're going to lose it. This is the live for you today. So I want to welcome Amanda from I Am Beyond Brokenness. Amanda, please tell the community about yourself, your practice.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Amanda Mbata. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. That's just fancy language for therapist. And I'm the owner of Living Waters Counseling and Wellness Center, where we offer services, a plethora of services for mental health and substance abuse and various things in that domain. However, I'm also the founder of Beyond Brokenness, which is founded upon being able to help women move from a place of traumatic experiences into a place of wholeness where they're able to experience the fullness of life with an understanding that their traumatic experiences don't have to define them, but they can inform the way that they live as they move forward and live freely.
So this is where I want to start. I've wanted to do this live for so long and I couldn't think, like, I met Amanda just late, but we just bonded literally last month. And I knew that when we did, like, I've been following her page and I knew it, but like, I was so glad that we had a way to connect well beyond this. Because sometimes when you are going through things, you think you're the only one going through it. And we don't know what we don't know, or we don't know when we need to raise our hands and say, I need help. Um, and social
Yeah.
media is a place that can connect us, but social media is also a place that can harm us. We compare ourselves to other people, their journeys, their milk. You're seeing people that come to in front of the camera and they're like, I just finished pumping and oh, I have all this milk. And you're like, why is this not happening to me? Why is my body not doing this? Why does something for someone so easy seem so easy for one person? And I just wish for this. I want this. Y'all know I'm team oversupply and team freezer stash, but that is not everyone's truth. And I just want you to learn to love your bodies as is. They're amazing as is, and you're not going to get another one. Maybe in some other way, but you're not going to get another one. So I want you to start to love your breasts, even if they're different sizes. I want you to start to love your breasts, even if they're not big or small, or wish they were smaller, or wish they were bigger. We only have one life to live, and I want us to live it in the best way possible. So Amanda, I want you to talk about how mental health can impact you if things don't go as planned. What do you tell, or what are some general tips for women to start processing that this whatever this is, because this is everyone on this call, and even Amanda's truths and my truth, what the this is different for everyone. So whatever the this is, how do you help just start the process to thinking about when things don't go your way? And not everything always has to be depression or anxiety. Some of it's, you know, I need to talk to someone. I need XYZ. So how do you help when things don't go this a certain way in the different levels that it may be? How do you help women to process how and where and when they need help?
Yeah. So what you just said, when things don't go our way, that reminds me of control. And it actually does remind me of anxiety, because we have this way of being that we think life should go and people around us should conform to, and our circumstances and situations should be this way and that way. And when it doesn't happen like that, of course, you know, depression can settle in, disappointment can settle in, regrets will settle in, guilt, just all sorts of things and emotions that we may experience. But what's coming to mind for me is having an understanding of your circle of control, your circle of influence, and your circle of concern. And your circle of control is going to be the things that you have access to control, excuse me. And so that will be your thoughts, your words, your behaviors, right? So things that you actually have control over, your reactions, your mindset. And then you have a circle of influence. And that circle of influence speaks to other people's reactions, other people's behaviors, the world around you in some way, form, or fashion. This is what you have influence over. It's not what you can control. And so it's important to understand that the circumstances of the world, the circumstances of some situations, you won't have control over it. It's not always going to go your way. And so what this does is ground you in reality and remind you that, hey, there are some things that I can control, but there are also some things that I cannot. And when the things come that I cannot control, like I have no influence over, no control over, that's going to go in my circle of concern. I can spend my time worrying about it, or I can spend my time using something called resilient imagination or resilient imagery. And what I'm going to do with that is, if I'm in a difficult situation, I'm in a difficult circumstance, how can I envision myself getting out of this? It's not what I planned, right? But I'm a resilient person. We were created to overcome. So what can I do in order to overcome this circumstance and this situation and see myself in a light that may not be what I imagined for me, but I'm seeing myself as resilient. I'm seeing myself as someone who does have certain levels of control, but also understands when it's time to relinquish control.
You just dropped a whole lot of a terminology I had never heard of before. So I want to know, like, resilient imagery and resilient imagine. Like, wow, you just dropped a whole gem over here, and I'm sitting here like, I'm about to use that.
Yeah, because we usually so in certain situations, when things don't go our way, we see ourselves failing. We see ourselves crumbling underneath the pressure of whatever the circumstance is, because we're not using our imagination in a positive manner. We're using our imagination to view our demise and to view everything crumbling in front of us. But we can use that same imagination to see ourselves persevering through that circumstance. We can use that same imagination to see ourselves being in that horrible situation, being in that difficult situation, but still being able to use the supports around us, being able to keep our minds in a stable place, being able to use the systems and the resources that are in our hands to really get ourselves through.
That's amazing. So then when you're what you really just dropped is literally, I'm going through the other topics that I wanted to talk about today. And I'm literally moving stuff in those buckets. What actually is in my control? Like I'm not a major of no one psychology, social work, or nothing, but I literally went to, like, what is in my control? What is the influence, like, with the support system? Like, I'm literally, so can you talk about when your support, like, there's things that you can control, but then there are other people. And so sometimes as new moms, sometimes as we're going through things, we think things are going to look one way. And when it actually happens, it looks a different way. And what happens when your support system is not supporting, or you need a different type of support than they are giving you in that moment, because you've gone through a whole different process of becoming a mom, had a whole baby, either a good journey into motherhood or not so good journey. To help them to process when the support system is not supporting?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I think you have to acknowledge the loneliness that comes along with that. So instead of saying, I think when we were having our conversation the other day, you
Yeah,
mentioned, you know, you was doing it
I
by yourself.
was.
You was, you know, you didn't want to ask for help, but get into that place where you're like, no, this is lonely. This is hard. And really putting a name and identifying what you're experiencing frees you up to then say, all right, I feel this way. So what do I need as a result of that? And what that's going to do is come back to your values. Understanding what do I value in this season, like whether it's new motherhood, whether you're starting a pumping journey, whether you're, you know, maybe you're an empty nester, right? Like there are so many different seasons of life where you're going to need different things, but it's going to come back to your values. And if you're not grounded in your values and what you may need in a season, you may allow yourself to receive certain things from other people that you really don't need, and it becomes overwhelming instead of
You
being
just
a
read
help to
me.
you.
But what happens when you think because I want to go back to that. Then like let's put me on the hot seat, right? What happens when you feel like you don't need help or you don't want help or that, you know, I'd rather like say that I did this all by myself. Like there's some check, like I got some trophy waiting for me at the end of the table that was never there. Like what happens when you've convinced yourself that like, I can do this by myself. I don't need anyone here. Does that make sense?
It does. And you have to dismantle that core belief, because the reality is we thrive off of community, whether you're a mom, whether you're a dad, whether you're none of the above, right? We thrive on healthy community. We need other people in order to survive. And so that mindset is a core belief. And it's something that's usually developed either maybe you were put in situations where you had to do everything by yourself. Maybe you were like we talked about the firstborn daughter. I am that as well, and I am that from a Nigerian household, so that is a completely different way of life, right? So understanding that sometimes our circumstances will cause us to have those type of mindsets, but when you recognize it, and that's what I teach my people who I work with, like we got to first uncover this core belief, and then we got to dismantle this core belief. And once we dismantle it, we can apply truth to it. And the truth is that I do need other people. I may not need them in the same capacity that someone else may need them. I may not be able to, you know, put some things over here without having somebody else help me. But hey, I'm not weak because I need help. I'm actually showing my strength because I can recognize I have emotional awareness, and I also have emotional intelligence. And I'm kind of going a little soapbox here, but emotional awareness is completely different from emotional intelligence. We can have the understanding of what we feel in a moment. That is emotional awareness. Emotional intelligence is being able to know, what do I do with this feeling? So if I'm feeling tired, worn out, lonely, I'm feeling like weak in my body and all these things, and I'm noticing it, that's great as a first step. Emotional intelligence is really what's going to take you to the next level to be able to say, and I need help.
That's the truth. So how does one start to grow past that? And then not only just grow past it, because I feel like, you know, I was looking at something yesterday on someone's page that popped up in my stories, and it was like, you know, it was actually on Courtney's story. I was looking at it, and I can't remember the exact saying, but it was like, you know, grow, you know, that when you grow past something, but like, how do you not pick it back up again?
That's so hard. It is I'm telling you, even in my own situation, I like how you said earlier, like my this might not be your this, but we all have something. And for me, it is a daily reminder, because what we have are these neural pathways in our brain, and whatever way they're used to going, they're going to choose that path over any other path. But once you start to introduce something different, the path gets a little bit smaller, right? And it starts to open up a new pathway. But it's still there. Your brain, your body, the way you function, it's naturally embedded in you to go that way. And so it is a constant reminder, one, of how this is going to help me. How is this going to help me? And for some people, that's not enough. We have to ask ourselves, how is this going to help my family? How is this going to serve people beyond me? What should I do in order to make sure that those around me will be supported, until we build that level of self-love to know that I can just do this for me.
Okay, yeah. It's really hard. It's really, and like you said, your this is different from someone else's, and like you try to like say you think you've grown past it, but let something trigger like, and it's like, oh, I'm not gonna pick that back up again. Like,
Yep. Because
right.
those thoughts will go right back to what they're used to thinking. I'm telling you, they will go right back. But you also have to remind yourself, like if you used to be in a place where you refuse to ask for help, and then a situation comes up, you realize you're overwhelmed, and that thought, girl, you can do it by yourself. You have like that's the I would even go as to say like that's your subconscious, right? But you got to consciously tell yourself, no, I need help right now. And I know that if I get help, this weight is going to come off my
So I
shoulders.
guess with the weight, like especially if as you're starting, everyone starts motherhood journeys different. Some of them are, some you may not be happy about it. Some are somewhere indifferent, don't feel a certain way. Some are nervous about being parents. Some are, taking their childhood and like now have the weight of that responsibility onto you of taking care of a tiny human, all of those things. And so, yes, in the perfect world, everything goes great. And like you have the baby and all this beautiful moment. You have all these people show up, food trains at the door, people helping you. But what happens if that's not your truth? What happens if, when you started out, you were with someone, your significant other, and now significant other isn't there? What happens if you are divorced and before shortly before, shortly after? What happens if you realize this ain't it, and now you have to deal with the stress of taking care of a tiny human, pumping, or if your milk supply starts to go down due to the stress. If you just realize that like this weight is bigger and harder than what you thought it was going to be, because you thought it was going to look like this, and now it looks like this. How do you, what does that look like with trying to not even, everyone's how to help people get past it looks different. I know that. But how do you help someone to identify that like this is happening? I need to understand the circumstance, but also start to take actionable steps. What does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think people know when that's happening. I think the issue is in not being able to accept that my story doesn't look like everyone else's story. And we kind of touched on this. So we get on social media. We even see people out and about, and it looks like people are so happy. And you had a great pregnancy, and maybe I had a sucky pregnancy. My birth experience was beautiful. Yours was traumatic. And so we start to say my story is not good enough. My story is not the ideal. And that adds a layer of disappointment. That adds a layer of shame, even, where you want to like hide your experience. And this is where this is why people think that they're the only ones who have had those type of experiences, because of the shame that comes along with it. So it's not even about identifying that this is what I'm experiencing. It's having the courage to be able to even share that experience with someone who could be able to help you, whether that's another mom, whether that is, a therapist, whoever, right? Like someone who you can trust, whether it's your journal starting out, because sometimes you really just need to be in a place where you're quiet and able to process your own experience at first. But being able to name that you feel like your experience was not good enough, being able to name that you feel like you're isolated in your experience, that is the easy part. It is dealing with the shame associated with it because you feel like you're not enough.
So with what you just said, what came to mind is this: for the people that are nervous to get help, because therapists, they have a rep, right? Like, oh, they're gonna do this and they're gonna try to fix me, or they're gonna do that. How do you handle it within your practice for the people that are nervous because they're automatically thinking, if I go to get help, I'm going to be labeled. They're going to put a label on me. They're going to put a label on my situation. How do you help people to realize like that's not what you do?
Yeah. I try to get people to understand that when they come see me or see anyone within the practice, they're not just another number. We're not just talking to you as if I'm a walking DSM and I just want to put some diagnoses on you, right? Like the diagnostic and statistical manuals, what we use to diagnose. And so that's not what I am, right? I'm not just coming here to put a label on you. I actually want to know you. And the thing that I like to also tell people is that most change comes from rapport. So my job is to build a relationship with you. And that's what I'm doing. That's what my goal is, to have a relationship with you so that you feel comfortable enough to feel like you can open up, to feel like you can, reveal some of that shame and some of that disappointment in a place that is safe, and then grab hold of that resilience that comes from being open to be able to then overcome. So relationship is really what we're trying to build. It's not about, I want to diagnose you and all those things, great, like formalities, right? But all of that stuff out of the way. I want to know who you are, and I want to know who you are beyond that traumatic experience.
That's so helpful, because I think that, when you start your journey, you think it's supposed to look one way. Or literally this weekend, someone asked me in my stories, and I had to think about it because that wasn't my truth. So someone said to me, what would I have done if I had lower? So I pumped for over 3 years, my toddler, and someone literally asked me if I had lower milk supply, would I've continued to do so? And I explained to them that yes, I would, because I know that anything is good for my child. That's the only thing that I'm going to feed my baby from, my body. But I could only put myself in it as now. I can't make a situation that I wasn't my truth. Like I'm still going to talk from a place of what I think would have happened, but I don't know in my truth. So what do you say to someone that when they're trying to like get their point across? I'm like, well, what would you have done if something was different, or if you were in my shoes? Like, it's like not like a deflection. Like I don't go past that. I would have stopped, because I know that wouldn't have been true, but I can say that for sure because I didn't go through it. But like, how do you handle those situations of like people wanting to know, like, what would you have done, or like you were right or wrong because you would or wouldn't have done that? That makes sense. I think that comparison is so easy to do, but also like trying to tell people to walk a mile in my shoes, but nobody can walk a mile in your shoes.
Yes. I think that's where humility comes in on both ends, right? So whoever's asking the question could be potentially asking because they see something wrong with your experience or something wrong with their experience, and want to know, well, since your experience was so much better than mine, how would you have handled this negative experience? And I think if we can take a place of humility and understanding exactly what you said, I don't know is a great answer. I don't know, but can you talk to me about what your experience was, if that was your experience? How did you handle it? Humility and curiosity. Yes. Being curious about other people's experiences and not leaving them in a place where it feels like it doesn't matter. Because when those type of questions come up, it could be potentially coming from that place of feeling like my experience wasn't good enough.
You give it's so much to think about. And like, as you talk to people, even if it's a friend, I think all of us can take some of, I know all of us can take some of this advice, because it's even how you handle your friend group, even though, everything, like really that the humility and the curiosity of maybe not even trying to answer every single question. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe just listening, and maybe just listening, you know what I mean? What are you going through? And maybe not putting it back onto them. So that's all is helpful, I think, for anyone that's on here or anyone to listen to this going forward, that, even if we listen to our friend's truth or our friend's stories, or someone that we know or someone that we love, maybe not trying to tell what we would have done, or they ask us what we would have done, just be like, how are you doing in it? No.
Reminding them how resilient they are for doing it that way, because it takes resilience, whatever circumstance you found yourself in, right? It took a level of resilience.
It really does. So I guess my thing is, right, and we hope this never happens, but it's true, right? How do you handle or give tips or general tips on, how to handle as you're starting this new journey in your life when life changes happen? Let's say, we'll take, I want to take it separate because they're two separate things. Let's just say let's go with this one first, like loss of friendships, loss of relationships, as in everybody meant to go with you to the next journey, right? How do you help give people tips on how to identify it and how to handle it? Because sometimes we keep trying to take people with us that go, so
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so this grounds us back in our values. Again, your values are going to change depending on some of your values rather will change based on the season of life that you're in. And so you'll begin to notice a friction. You'll begin to notice even maybe a drifting apart. And once you notice that, don't fight it, but address it. And maybe that does look like a conversation with that friend. Hey, I think we're on two different pages at this point. I'm kind of going this way, you're going that way. And it's okay. And adults should be able to have those kind of conversations without harming the relationship, right? And what I mean by that is I don't have to hurt you in order to separate from you, right? So I can address this defect in our relationship without tossing you to the side. But some separation may be necessary. And so I would first say reassess your values. If this person is aligning with those values, great. If they're not, let's address it. But then mourn properly. Because sometimes people have relationships that have been so long-standing, friendships that have been long-standing, and it feels like an empty void to not have this person a part of this new journey of your life. Mourn properly. And then use the resources around you, whether that is new mom support groups, church, just go to some community outings when you can, right? So that you can begin to put yourself around people who do value the things that you value. And you'll begin to now develop friendships that can last throughout that season.
I love that. But let's talk about the other side of it. I will not be, denying, that throughout, I pumped for 3 years. So a lot of things happened for 3 years. What do you tell people that lose loved ones? I lost my granny about almost, my son was about to turn a year into. What do you tell people when they're losing loved ones or losing people close to them, during the time, and they're trying to provide for their baby, but also mourn themselves over the loss of someone very close to them, or someone that is close to them lost someone close to, like, how do you help when the loss of life happens when you're in the middle of your mothering journey and maybe you can't show up in the way that you could when you didn't have a little one, or all of those things? Like, how does that look?
Yeah, 3 things. Number 1, do not do it alone, right? And so that ties into community. Making sure you have a healthy, solid community. Whether that doesn't mean that you're telling everyone everything, but we usually have a close inner circle to where we're able to communicate certain things to these people. And then we have an outer circle, which is most likely our broader community. So that does look like small groups, church, like other things like that. And then we have an outward community, which I'm probably not going to share those things with you, right? But that inner community, really getting healthy in that level of community with the people who you trust so that you don't have to go through that season by yourself. Now, the other side of that is learning to honor the place that you're in and not pushing those emotions away. Honoring that space and also having grace for yourself to understand, because this is where I am, I may not be functioning at 100%, but the people around me, they are here. They are my village. They can come in, they can fill in, they can support me. And as I'm getting the support that I need, baby will get the support they need. But you see how that starts with you getting the support you need, right?
Yeah. I agree. I just think that during this time, like, we're all carrying so much weight and we're walking around like we're not carrying the weight. We're all, doesn't exist, doesn't happen. And I know that it does. And I know you see a lot of moms in your practice. And I know you deal with this so often. But what does that look like? Because one of the things that come up, and I want to ask from your perspective. So, for example, I have moms that will send me a message and they'll say, I'm ready to wean. I'm ready to stop. I'm ready to stop. I'm ready to stop. I'm ready to wean. I don't want to do this anymore. Or they're getting pressure from someone to not do it. Then shortly after, there will be a message, not, in my DMs that are saying, I'm now struggling because what you know, sometimes we think that like once we get rid of this thing, that everything's just gonna get better. Or you become resentful towards the people that are pressuring you to stop something that you are not deep down ready for, or you think you're ready because you think it's going to go away. What do you say to help? If you know, what do you say to know that you're ready for something? Like, does that look like a certain way? And I know that differs generally of what that looks like when you're like, so for me, I knew I was ready. Like I weaned down, I natural term weaned over a whole entire year out, you know, it was just like my body did it on its own, right? I didn't force it. So that wasn't, for me, that was easy for me because I know how hard it is for me to would have stopped if I had to do it myself, right? But I know that was my truth. But like for the people, like how do you just love like a general tip or two of like, how do you start to tell people like you're ready for this versus prematurely being ready for something?
Yeah, I think that takes a lot of self-assessment and really getting into a place of reflection. One thing that I do when I'm trying to make a hard decision, I have to ask myself, am I willing to accept the consequences? And so I ask myself, no matter what decision I make, there are going to be a set of consequences that I have to accept. And I list them out, pros and cons for this decision, pros and cons for that decision. And I see, am I willing to accept the pros and cons of this, or am I willing to accept the pros and cons of that? If I am, I'm going to choose whichever one. And honestly, I do that in isolation, right? I like to do it. Maybe you'll get some advice from some people. Maybe you'll listen to a couple podcasts, you'll hear a couple, you know, read a couple books. Great. But once you have that information, you're kind of just stalling and you want others to make the decision for you because it takes the weight off of you. But you're the one who's going to have to deal with the aftermath. And you're right. When we feel like our autonomy has been taken away, we do become resentful. So taking time to ask yourself, am I willing to accept the consequences of this decision? And if I'm not, what's my alternative?
I love it. I love the pros and cons, like, because that's going to look different for every single person that is going to do that self-assessment for themselves. I had to take a deep breath. A whole deep breath. No, because you just served up the sauce. Like it was nothing. I'm just saying, like, I need to,
you know what?
Have a whole moment. And that's what it is sometimes. Like I know when something, I wanted it for the community. I didn't think I was going to get served some sauce.
Oh my gosh.
So I got to take a deep breath after this one. I mean, because it was wow. It was short and sweet, but like very pointed, not long drawn out thing. It was very like this, and this, and like that's how I process stuff. Is like, you know, so like you didn't even realize that like you were talking my language. Action steps, like this is this, this is this, this is this, like so. Like I was served some sauce. I got a problem.
I'm glad.
Listen,
I'm glad I could.
But no, I thank you like for your time. So I would love to, you know, just let the community know again, your practice, what you all do. If they're interested in working with you, how can they find you, your practice, your team, all of the things. Like let
Yes. If you're interested in working with me, you can head over to iambeyondbrokenness.com. Submit a contact form and you'll see all the information there. And I'd love to connect. You can DM me here if you have any questions. And again, I help women access life beyond the brokenness.
Is there a reason, if you're willing to share, like, because that is, when I saw your page name, I was like, it's healing in that name. Does that make sense? So like, what was the driver behind like the name? Is there a driver that you're willing to share?
There is, yeah. So the Lord our God said at Mount Sinai that it was time for us to move beyond this mountain. And so that is literally where I Am Beyond Brokenness was birthed from, that scripture. And it talks about how they kind of like stayed there. The Israelites specifically stayed there, and they kind of like lived there for so long. And it's like they already had the instructions and everywhere to go, but they chose to stay. And the Lord was like, hey, it's time to move. And that was honestly my experience, like being in tough situations, being in traumatic experiences, not necessarily being in a traumatic experience, but living mentally in the place of that traumatic experience, to the point where it's like, okay, Amanda, are you ever going to decide like to move forward? And once like the Lord literally walked me through that journey, I wanted to help other people do the
What's
same
a powerful
thing.
name? If you all are now following I Am Beyond Brokenness, if you've made it through this entire live and you are here, you're not, like, there's healing in her page. Like, there's healing in the name, because really we choose our names for reasons. Like, if you're really doing something to be called into it, like, you really think, pray on it. Like, when people are like, no, you're gonna change, I was like, no, this is Home with Purpose. Is like, you know, like, oh, you need to change your logo every so often. I'm like, no, this is it. Like, this is birth. I don't care.
This is it.
This is so much.
Yeah.
Everything in Punk with Purpose was called for a reason, event. And so I don't get caught up in the let me change this because it's been 2 years, or let me do this, been this. I'm like, no, like, this is it. I want people to know. Thank you for do you have anything to add? Like, anything else to share?
No, I think that's it. I really appreciate you for having me.
You literally.
But we gotta do this again.
It was.
Seriously,
I'm taking
this
deep
great
breaths.
conversation.
I literally no. Like, oh my God. You know how you thinking you doing something for somebody else and you really end up doing it yourself?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. No, I get it. Because that be happening to me all
I literally. I'm taking a lot of deep breaths right now. So you have a lot that I can take. I know that I have a lot that I can take back with me, and I hope anyone listening to this will feel the same way, because there's so much behind the message of what we're doing when we're out here in these streets, you know, trying to live out our calling, you know what I'm saying? And so you lived it out today. That's all I'm gonna say. Take my deep breaths, Amanda. I'm gonna thank you so much for this. Like, this is like literally processing everything as I'm talking, trying to like gracefully end this conversation, because like this was really something that I needed as well. And I didn't even, you know what I'm saying? Thank you, sis.
I appreciate you.
Well, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. This live will be saved for everyone. Like, when I go live with other brands, I really want to save this message, because I know with everything that I do, there are always going to be safe spaces and places. I know that I want people to get the care that they deserve when they find people that they can connect with. And kind of know who you can connect with by listening, by talking, because when your people find you, they know. And I have to let people know when they listen to this, if they listen to this, if Amanda's their people, I need for them to know how to find and connect with her. So thank you for your time today. A wonderful, 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 wonderful rest of your day. Bye.
You too. Thank you.